When news broke of Charlie Kirk's assassination, it didn't just dominate headlines. It cracked open the fault lines of American culture like an earthquake. Think about it. Kirk wasn't just another talking head on cable news. He was a figurehead for a movement, a voice that a whole generation of young conservatives had rallied around. His sudden, violent death didn't just silence a person, it silenced a symbol. And when symbols are attacked, history tells us societies don't just shrug, they react loudly. This wasn't the kind of story you scroll past on Twitter with a half-interested wow. This was the kind of event where people stop mid-sip of their morning coffee, blink twice at their screens, and say, wait, what? It's the kind of moment where shock instantly transforms into fury, sadness, and a hunger for answers. The country wasn't just mourning Kirk. It was asking itself a terrifying question. If even high-profile figures aren't safe, who is? And here's the kicker. Events like this don't happen in a vacuum. America in 2025 is already a pressure cooker. Polarized politics, culture wars raging, institutions mistrusted, and social media amplifying every ounce of outrage. Into that boiling pot, drop the assassination of a conservative firebrand, and suddenly the simmer turns into a rolling boil. What we're watching now isn't just grief, it's transformation. For many conservatives, this tragedy isn't the end of an era, it's the beginning of a new one. The feeling isn't just loss, it's awakening. A line has been crossed and people feel it. But here's the thing. When a movement loses a leader, someone has to step into the void. And in this case, that someone was Charlie's own wife, Erica. Let's talk about how she turned mourning into a megaphone in fact number 2. When most people lose a spouse, the natural reaction is grief, private, quiet, and hidden from the world. But Erica Kirk, she flipped that script entirely. Days after Charlie's assassination, instead of retreating into silence, she stepped into the national spotlight and gave a speech that landed like a thunderclap. No tears, no shaky voice, no please respect our privacy. Instead, Erica turned her grief into a rallying cry that electrified conservatives and rattled her opponents. Her message was raw, unapologetic, and steeped in something bigger than politics. She called the attack not just a tragedy, but a spiritual war. According to her, this wasn't just about one man's death, it was about good versus evil, light versus darkness. And let's be honest, whether you agree with her worldview or not, framing a political assassination as a divine battleground is one way to supercharge a movement. Her warning, "You have no idea what you've unleashed," instantly went viral. That line wasn't just about grief. It was a declaration of war, a promise that the movement wouldn't die with Charlie. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire that was already burning hot. Conservatives across the country picked it up, repeated it, and turned it into a rallying slogan. And this is where the cultural shift began. Erica didn't just defend her husband's legacy, she positioned herself as a torchbearer. In politics, vacuum is power. And the minute she spoke, she filled the void left by Charlie's absence with her own brand of fiery conviction. But once the slogans start echoing, the energy has to go somewhere. And where did it go? Straight into outrage. Conservatives declaring they've had enough. That's fact number 3.
For years, conservatives have been told to grin and bear it. Be tolerant, they said. Respect diversity, they said. But after Charlie Kirk's assassination, the patience snapped like an overused rubber band. Across the country, the new conservative refrain is loud and clear. Enough is enough. Think about the buildup. First, they were branded racists for wanting secure borders. Then they were smeared as fascists for opposing endless COVID restrictions. Then came the accusations of bigotry for rejecting gender ideology and elitist mockery for wearing MAGA hats in public. Each time, the advice was the same. Shrug it off, keep the peace, take the high road. But tolerance only stretches so far. Eventually, it feels less like tolerance and more like being a doormat with "Step on me" written across it. And that's the shift we're witnessing now. This isn't just political outrage, it's personal. People feel mocked, demonized, and cornered people fight back. After Kirk's death, the reaction wasn't just grief. It was a declaration that conservatives wouldn't stay silent or polite anymore. They weren't going to quietly accept insults, violence, or the constant drip of cultural disdain. What's remarkable here is the generational edge. Younger conservatives, the college students, the 20-somethings who looked up to Charlie as proof that their voices mattered, are the ones saying it loudest. For them, enough is enough isn't just a slogan. It's a generational awakening, the political equivalent of flipping the Monopoly board and saying, game over, new rules. And if you think that attitude stayed confined to speeches and rallies, think again. The outrage started spilling over into everyday life, including a viral print shop showdown that lit up the internet. That's fact number 4. Sometimes the biggest cultural flashpoints don't come from the halls of Congress or a primetime debate stage. They come from the copy and print desk at Office Depot. Yes, you heard that right. In the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, one of the incidents that set social media ablaze was a clerk refusing to print a prayer poster for a vigil. Her reason? She called it propaganda. Now, let's pause here. On paper, it's just one worker, one decision, one customer left fuming. But in the internet age, nothing stays small. The video of the refusal went viral, exploding across Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Within days, the story was everywhere. A grieving community asking for something as simple as a poster, and a corporate employee saying no. To many conservatives, this wasn't about office supplies. It was about disrespect, bias, and silencing expressions of faith. And the fallout? Swift. The clerk was fired almost immediately. For conservatives, this was proof that the tide might finally be turning, that companies and institutions, after years of bending to progressive outrage mobs, were now starting to face consequences when the tables turned. But there's a deeper symbolism here. The prayer poster wasn't just paper and ink. It represented something sacred, the right to mourn, the right to faith, the right to gather. Denying it struck a nerve because it wasn't just about one vigil. It felt like yet another example of cultural hostility, a slap in the face at the worst possible moment. This is how culture wars escalate, not just through laws and politics, but through 1,000 everyday clashes that go viral and turn into lightning rods. And speaking of viral, the digital battlefield got even hotter when game developers themselves started celebrating Kirk's death online. That's where things really got messy. Welcome to fact number 5.
The culture war doesn't just play out in Congress or in the streets. It plays out in tweets, TikToks, and offhand posts that can nuke a career in seconds. Case in point, the gaming industry. After Charlie Kirk's assassination, some developers at Sucker Punch Studios decided to post on Blue Sky, celebrating his death. They probably thought it would stay within their little echo chamber of likes and high fives. Spoiler alert, it didn't. Screenshots spread like wildfire. The internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't forgive when the wrong group sees it. Within hours, conservative users mobilized, digging up names, tagging employers, and demanding accountability. The result? Pink slips. Several developers lost their jobs. And just like that, what started as edgy online banter turned into real-world unemployment. Now here's the irony. For years, conservatives were the ones complaining about cancel culture, about being silenced, shamed, or fired for expressing unpopular opinions. But in this case, the pendulum swung back, and it was the progressives who got canceled. Conservatives didn't just sit back and complain, they fought fire with fire, using the same tactics their opponents had perfected. And in doing so, they made a statement. Two can play this game. This moment was bigger than just one company. It was symbolic of a shift in power online. Social media has become a minefield, where words aren't just words, they're career grenades waiting to go off. And this time, conservatives weren't the ones taking the hit. But if you think the fallout stayed confined to screens and keyboards, think again. The tensions spilled back into real life. Coffee shops, hiking trails, and public spaces where one red hat could spark a fight. That's fact number 6. For some people, wearing a red MAGA hat is just about politics. For others, it's like walking around with a flashing neon sign that says, "Please start an argument with me." Over the past few years, videos have piled up, showing conservatives harassed in public simply for daring to wear one. And in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, those clips hit harder than ever. We're not talking about light teasing here. We're talking spit in the face, coffee accidentally dumped, teenagers shoved on hiking trails, and full-blown screaming matches in restaurants. Every time a new video surfaces, it goes viral because it taps into that feeling conservatives describe over and over, that being visibly right-wing in public makes you a walking target. Now, the MAGA hat has become more than headgear. It's a cultural lightning rod. On one side, it represents free speech, identity, and defiance. On the other, it's painted as a symbol of hate, division, and everything wrong with America. And that polarization has turned a simple cap into a battlefield. Here's where it gets interesting. After Kirk's death, those old videos of MAGA hat confrontations started resurfacing, almost like evidence in a trial. See, conservatives argue, this hostility has been brewing for years. It reinforces the sense that what happened to Kirk wasn't an isolated act, but part of a much bigger climate of contempt. And when ordinary people can't wear their political identity in peace, it doesn't just frustrate them, it radicalizes them. For conservatives, every insult or shove confirms what they already believe. They're under attack for simply existing. And when that hostility spills online, it gets even uglier, because sometimes it's not just words or coffee, it's careers and families on the line. That's exactly what went down in fact number 7.
If you thought the culture war only ruins reputations online, think again. Sometimes the fallout follows people right into their living rooms. Case in point, the viral TikTok fiasco after Charlie Kirk's assassination. One woman, sitting comfortably in her Eagles jersey sipping wine, decided to record a video celebrating his death. She probably thought it was just edgy, dark humor for her followers. Wrong. The internet doesn't play like that anymore. Within hours, conservative sleuths tracked her down, but they didn't stop at her. They dug up her husband's small business and flooded it with one-star reviews. Phone calls came in, clients backed out, and the family found itself caught in the digital crossfire. One smug video turned into a real-world nightmare. Here's the brutal lesson. In 2025, what you post online doesn't stay online. It doesn't just vanish into the ether of memes and hashtags. It comes back with teeth. For years, progressives wielded the cancel hammer, smashing careers and reputations of conservatives for a badly worded tweet or off-color joke. But this time, the tables turned, and conservatives were the ones swinging the hammer. Now, was it fair? That depends on who you ask. Critics call it harassment and mob justice. Supporters call it accountability. The same kind of accountability conservatives say they've been crushed under for years. Either way, the message was clear. The era of one-sided cancel culture is over. This wasn't just about one woman's wine-fueled TikTok. It was about a movement flexing its muscle and proving it could fight back with the same digital firepower. And for families watching at home, it was a warning. The internet can make you famous or ruin your life, sometimes in the same day. But behind the TikToks, tweets, and viral drama lies something deeper, a bigger shift in values. Because what conservatives are really saying is this: tolerance isn't working anymore. That's fact number 8. For decades, tolerance was preached like gospel. Be tolerant of different views, lifestyles, and beliefs. That was the mantra. But here's the thing. Tolerance only works when it's mutual. When one side tolerates and the other side mocks, ridicules, or outright cancels, it stops feeling like tolerance and starts feeling like surrender. And in the wake of Charlie Kirk's assassination, conservatives are declaring, loudly and unapologetically, tolerance is dead. Take the words of leaders like Father Calvin Robinson, who argued that conservatives have bent over backwards for years, allowing progressive culture to dominate schools, media, and entertainment. Something is happening. The results? They feel like they've been painted into a corner, and no one likes living in a corner. Kirk's death didn't just spark grief, it fueled a deeper realization. Playing nice hasn't protected them, and turning the other cheek hasn't stopped the blows. Now, this isn't a polite seminar debate anymore. This is raw, emotional, and confrontational. Conservatives aren't just saying, we disagree, they're saying we're done. Done with being labeled villains, done with being silenced, done with being told to swallow their pride in the name of civility while their icons are demonized or worse. Here's the kicker. When tolerance dies, something else replaces it: resistance.
And resistance, when mixed with grief and fury, can transform into a political tidal wave. That's what's brewing here. Conservatives aren't hiding their frustration anymore. They're weaponizing it. So while the progressive left may see intolerance, conservatives see something else, self-defense. And that shift in framing could reshape politics for years to come. And if you think this sounds like just anger, think again. Many on the right are framing it as something even bigger, an awakening. Which brings us to fact number 9. The sleeping giant has stirred.
Every movement has a breaking point, a moment when frustration turns into action. For conservatives, Charlie Kirk's assassination may have been exactly that. Erica Kirk's haunting words, "You have no idea what you've unleashed," didn't just resonate, they detonated. Suddenly, the idea of a sleeping giant awakening wasn't just rhetoric. It became a rallying cry. Think about it. For years, conservatives have been described as the silent majority, a phrase that sounds powerful but also a little passive. Silent, quiet, sitting on the sidelines while the cultural tide washed over them. But silence, when shaken by tragedy, can erupt into something louder, fiercer, and more united than anyone expects. What we're seeing now is a shift from defensive politics to offensive momentum. It's not just about surviving the culture war, it's about charging into it with banners raised. Conservative influencers are declaring this the beginning of a generational awakening. They're urging followers to vote, organize, speak out, and refuse to apologize for their beliefs. In their eyes, Kirk's death didn't weaken the movement, it hardened it. Here's the thing about sleeping giants. Once they stand, they don't go back to bed easily. Anger is a motivator. Grief is a unifier. And when you mix the two, you get energy that can shake elections, policies, and culture. Whether you agree with the politics or not, one thing's clear. This giant isn't yawning anymore. It's stomping. And that stomping, it echoes. The question now is whether it echoes into peaceful change, political victories, or something more chaotic. Either way, the giant is awake, and everyone's watching. Which leads us to the ultimate question. Where does all this go? Because this story isn't just about the past, it's about the future. That's fact number 10. So here we are, at the edge of a cultural cliff, staring down into an uncertain future. Charlie Kirk's assassination wasn't just an isolated act of violence. It was a spark thrown into a field already dry with anger, distrust, and division. The real question is, what happens now? One possibility is a political surge. The outrage, the speeches, the viral moments, they could channel directly into voter turnout, grassroots organizing, and a conservative renaissance at the ballot box. Movements built on grief can transform into powerful political waves. Think back to history. Tragedies often birth revolutions. If this energy crystallizes into action, 2026 and 2028 could look very different. But there's another path, a spiral of chaos. When outrage isn't guided, it burns. Online mobs can ruin reputations, but they can also overshoot, alienating moderates who might otherwise sympathize. Anger can unify, but it can also divide if it boils over into violence or paranoia. That's the danger hanging in the air. Will the movement grow stronger, or will it implode under its own fury? And then there's the middle road, transformation. Maybe this moment sparks something more complex, a new conservative identity, less about silence and more about unapologetic resistance. If that identity grows, it won't just reshape elections. It will reshape the very culture wars themselves, making tolerance a relic of the past and defiance the new badge of honor. Whatever path unfolds, one thing is undeniable. Something big is happening. And unlike other news cycles that fade in days, this one is sticking. It's bigger than Charlie Kirk, bigger than one speech, bigger than one hat or one viral TikTok. It's a cultural reckoning. Engagement moment. But here's where I throw it to you. Is this the birth of a conservative awakening or just another flashpoint in America's endless culture war? Drop your thoughts in the comments because your take isn't just feedback, it's part of the story. If you made it this far, you're part of the pulse. Subscribe to @GlobalPulseNews for bold insights, sharp breakdowns, and the stories that cut through the noise. Because this isn't just news, it's history. And we're watching it unfold together.